Well, could a perfect storm be heading towards the auto industry? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, are we heading towards the perfect storm for the automobile industry? We're going to talk a little bit about that today and talk to Tony Joe, who is here as he is every Friday on the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. If you got a question for me, you know where to go. Go to prudentmoney.com, send it in, and we'll get you taken care of. But today, Tony Joe, talking a little bit about the trends of the automobile industry, where things are heading, and it's a pretty interesting results of some surveys and some trend following people that the analysts are doing. As you and I discussed, don't know we agree with everything, but it's interesting to talk about it and kind of get an idea of what is going to be the way people are going to be driving and the trends of that going forward. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing fine. I'm it's hot at the shop, so I'm enjoying this cool studio, the Palacious Studios of Prudent Money. But
the global one.
I think we can drag this out for about 2 hours because I could tell jokes.
Yeah,
we can talk about sports.
I got things to do beyond the radio show. So, listen, maybe
I just want to stay here.
Well, hey, you can go in there and put your head on the desk and take a nap.
I wanted to, before we begin, I wanted to just point out something about. I've heard you talk about the perfect storm in the economy several times in the past 20, whatever we've been together,
right.
Okay, where economic indicators look bad and everything's coming together to create a perfect storm. And then I remember years ago the movie called The Perfect Storm, where all three fronts came together to create and it's all bad. Now, my idea of a perfect storm is a little wind, nobody gets hurt, nothing happens, the rain ends, the sun comes out, and everything's fine. That's what I call the perfect storm.
A storm would indicate something bad, not that you're sitting on the beach in San Diego.
Yeah, but it's perfect, Bob.
It's perfect, yeah. Well, as things line up into a perfect storm, because we get to, in fact, we won't go there, but we could talk about that and what's going on with the economy and everything that's happening. It's a very interesting perfect storm that's building right now. But we won't get off on all that because we won't get back to what we were originally going to talk about.
Okay, then.
Which was the auto industry. And analysts are talking about the perfect storm starts with the population declines. It talks about that, you're no longer a growth industry, you're a declining industry. And they talked about everything from fertility rates and how that's going to be, that's trending downwards to about 1 million people. Coming down to immigration, how less people will be here because of immigration. And they talk about the high prices. And, when it comes down to it, they're saying that there's going to be fierce competition for new automobile sales because the declining demand, if you will. I mean, supply is never an issue. Sure. But you obviously don't want a lot of supply when the demand is this small. So we're facing some interesting things that could be happening. Of course, the high prices don't help at all as well. And so, what do you think about that?
Well, here is my thoughts on it are perhaps not any great deal that somebody should take to the bank, but here's what I see. The people that own cars today, right now, as we sit here, cars are wearing out. Cars are getting to the end of their lifespan, and people are going to replace them. So the decline of brand new car sales in the next 15 years, say, it's possible because we've had a zero population rate since the late 80s, but it hasn't really demonstrated in car sales. However, what has been demonstrated in car sales is the price alone. The price of new cars is so phenomenally high.
It's very high.
That I think if it does happen, then there's going to be, like you said, fierce competition. There's going to be cars showing up on the market. I know BWD, I think, down in Mexico from the Chinese car. I mean, it's cheap. They won't allow it in America yet, but we'll see what happens. And you got that one we talked about 2 weeks ago, the electric vehicle for $25,000 that was custom made. You could add things to it or not. You could
the base
keep
model
the price
was
down.
the
Right.
cheapest truck in America.
So I do see fierce competition ahead, and I will tell you this. The competition is not just going to be in electric vehicles. It's going to be in the internal combustion as well. But I also see the best possible outcome for someone who really is going to be cost conscious, climate sensitive, blah, blah, blah. You know, I think there's a half between an electric car. You know how, Bob, they say, well, he says this and this guy said this, and probably somewhere in the middle is the truth. Well, you got your electric cars, and there's going to be fierce competition. You're going to have internal combustion engines, smaller, which they're already smaller. They're putting turbos on everything because they get more power out of it, but they're trying to keep the cost down. So in the middle somewhere is probably a good deal, and that's going to be hybrids. Hybrids, as you know, they run on a gas engine for a period of time, and they run on a battery for a period of time. And I think the perfect scenario for a person who's going to do a lot of in-city driving, who's going to have a job like most people, drive to work 11, 15 miles, come home, do errands. I think a hybrid vehicle is going to be a big player in the coming market.
It is the perfect combination if you really, think about it. Having said that, though, that has got to, and you know better than I would, that's got to cost more money than your normal automobile.
It doesn't cost. I don't think you're going to see it costing as much as a fully electric vehicle. It's going to be more expensive than an ICE or an internal combustion engine, but it's not going to be more than a fully electric vehicle. I think the technology has come to the point. You know, hybrids have been around. The hybrid technology has been around since the 50s on trains, but I'm talking about the automotive technology. Prius was running, Toyota was making hybrids. I mean, gosh, they were making them back in the 90s.
But you know, you still see, though, what's interesting, I totally agree with you. What you're still seeing, though, is the electric car being fiercely marketed versus the hybrid. You still don't, which surprises me.
Yeah, and that's why I'm pointing that out. I think people should think about their next vehicle purchase and decide. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with an internal combustion engine. There's nothing wrong with an electric vehicle, fully electric vehicle. They all have their pros. They all have their drawbacks. But you also want to include a hybrid in there. Do a little research. See what you think about a hybrid. It may meet your needs far better than either a gas engine or an electric vehicle.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that, one of the biggest problems, of course, with the adaptation of the electric vehicle into everyday society is that you don't have the infrastructure build out to really cover? So here's the question. Do you, and this would just be a guess, really, you don't have hard, cold facts with this, but do you feel like the infrastructure as it stands today, with really, if you plan things out, you hook the thing up before you go to bed and you unplug it in the morning and you charge it overnight or however that works. But so you always have a good charge. But do you think, though, that outside of that the infrastructure is getting to the point to where it's saturated or still could could command a bigger electric car growth. Does that make sense?
Could always. It will, definitely.
But do you think it's caught up with the infrastructure?
No.
Or you still think
the infrastructure has not caught up with the demand? No, I promise you.
With the demand.
Right. In other words, there's not enough chargers out there.
Okay, so that's my,
right.
So my question is, to come back is,
think about this. You said, yeah, you can buy a charger, you put it in your garage, they install it, it costs money, but you plug it in at night and you go to bed. What about people that live in an apartment?
Yeah,
they can't do that.
Yeah, good,
See,
good
there's
point.
an awful lot
point.
of things that you have to consider.
So the infrastructure is still trying to catch up with demands. What you're saying? My question was okay.
Yes,
right. Yeah, that's still obviously a big problem. The other question too is that obviously the whole idea is to cut costs.
Right.
And so on a lot of these cars, you start seeing a lot of plastic, a lot of ways that they've definitely cut weight off the car and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point does that start to compromise safety, or does it compromise safety?
No, I wouldn't say it compromises safety, and I'm a big proponent of how. The way they build automobiles today, without getting into really heavy technology that most people would be bored with, just let me mention that the materials may seem cheap to the average person. There are some materials in there for cost-cutting measures, but a lot of those materials and a lot of the design of the automobile is built to save your life. And I want to point out how many times you see an accident now. We've discussed this before. How many times you see a wreck on the side of the road and everybody's out calling mom or their husband or, and everybody's walking around. You didn't see that 20 years ago. Or 30 years ago. There were crashes. People were pinned in it is so much safer today. But with the advent of all these crumple zones and how easy it is to collapse the car so that you don't take the brunt force, it costs more. You can hit a car at 10 miles an hour and do $5,000 worth of damage. But I think it's well worth the trade-off.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. If you got a question for me, go to the website, www.prudentmoney.com. We are up against a break. Stick around, and I'll be right back. Hello, this is Bob Brooks. Proverbs 22:3 and Proverbs 27:12 are the exact same verse word for word. I call them the stewardship verses of risk. A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. On the Prudent Money Radio Show, we teach about risk, how to identify it, how to figure it out, and what to do about it. We believe that to be a prudent steward, you have to be a good risk manager. Listen to the Prudent Money Radio Show on Bible School Radio 91.3. Prudent Money, home of the modern-day steward movement.
Dynamic, practical, life-changing.
There's no point in going to church and not letting the Christ who gave birth to the church on the day of Pentecost change your life.
Join us each day as Pastor Paul Shepherd applies the timeless truth of Scripture to everyday life. It's Destined for Victory on this great station.
Weekday afternoons at 3:30 here on Bible School Radio, KDKR.
This is Rob Randall, your host and teacher of the Invisible War radio program. The Invisible War is the study of God's Word on how to walk in Christ's victory in the spiritual battles we face against the powers of darkness. Join me every Sunday morning at 9 right here on KDKR and KYJC in Commerce, your station for life.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. Tony Joe's here every Friday to talk a little bit about what's going on in the automobile industry. And as Don Spear used to say, those who remember Don Spear, who started all this for both you and I, right, when he was on the radio and he'd had you come on, it was all about how can we teach people to save money and make good decisions? Because you think about the amount of money that you spend on your car on all the cars that you have over a lifetime. It is an expensive portion of life. And so you definitely want you need to get an education so that you know the right questions to ask so you can make good decisions.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And I remember Don saying it. Bob, let me bring you back for 1 second, and then I promise we'll move on. It is our job to make you a good steward of what God has entrusted to you. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, we talk about it all the time.
That is, Don's, well, he has passed away, God bless his soul, but, he was a good man, and he started all this, both of us. He started you and I. Good for Don, rest in peace.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit, let's shift gears here,
Okay.
no pun intended.
No pun intended. But
To talk a little bit about the driver who ran into the house, and this was in Katy, Texas, but ran into the front entry of a house going 73 miles an hour. And there was a fatality. The lady who lived there, a grandmother, I think she was 76 years old, was killed in the crash. This is really interesting because when I first read this, I thought, this doesn't make any sense to me. And then when I brought it up to you, you go, it doesn't make any sense to me either. So let's talk a little bit about this. Court documents state that Butler, who was driving the car, was working as a DoorDash driver at the time of the incident and allegedly told investigators that the last thing he remembered was operating the car on Highway 6 and in full self-driving mode. So this was a Tesla. And he said the car was on autopilot, which it just drives me crazy that as long as they've been building these Teslas, they're still calling that technology autopilot because of what it implies. We'll talk about that. But he said that the car was on autopilot and that he passed out, in his words. Records alleged that Butler denied feeling ill earlier in the day and was no history of seizures. He was also negative for drug and alcohol, street drugs, anything like that. At the time of the crash, investigators said Butler claimed his car was in self-driving mode, but Tesla since disputed that and claimed he overrode the feature. Now, this is where this gets a little odd. Updated court records state that investigators downloaded the crash data black box and received consent to search Butler's phone. They repeatedly found that Butler was using full self-driving mode for multiple DoorDash locations for the car crash with no issues. And let's see, let me skip down through some of this. He was basically using the self-driving mode. He comes flying off of this on-ramp and somehow hits the accelerator, and the car accelerates, steers over to the right, hits this house. Now, if the guy was drinking or the guy was on drugs, yeah, okay, I get it. Probably you could blame it on impaired driving, but that was not the case. He was working, and he all of a sudden, you're going to tell me that he intentionally just pounded the pedal down to the floor and hit a house going 73 miles, by the way.
On purpose.
To your point, he walked away from the without any major injuries. But hit the house on purpose. And it just makes no sense to me that, he had the self-driving mode on and that's his fault. Is it really his fault, or is it the finger in a court of law come back and point to Tesla?
Well, I would think from the information that I have, and if the information is correct, he was on the freeway and he was entering an off-ramp, coming down an off-ramp, and the car speeded up and ended up hitting this house. But my question would be, the Tesla, even on autopilot, if he hit the gas, like let's say he had a medical problem and someone passes out, their foot goes down on the gas. There are no contingencies for something like that. I mean, the car just speeds up. It's on autopilot. Correction should be made at that point, especially thinking or knowing he's coming off the freeway. Now, there's cameras, there's autopilot, there's all kinds of radar, so forth. Coming off the freeway, even autopilot, would you say that's a good idea to speed up to 70 miles? I mean, that just doesn't...
And the brake was
now,
never...
remember, this is the information that I have.
But remember, the brake was never touched.
Right.
So here's a guy. Let me throw this at you. This guy's driving this car, and he said, would it be? He's scared to death. Obviously, this has happened. He wasn't intending it to happen. So he says he passed out. Would it maybe thinking that if it was a little bit more dramatic, he would get off? But whether he passed out or he fell asleep, it's the atmosphere, it's the environment that perhaps created the situation where he fell asleep. Whether he fell asleep or he passed out, it's immaterial, really, unless you can document you had an illness or something. But what do you think?
Bob, whether he passed out or whether I'm just trying to put myself in that Tesla. You're coming on an off-ramp. Obviously, wouldn't the autopilot start to slow the car down? I mean, you're coming off the freeway, not getting onto it. So as you're coming off the freeway, even if you slam the pedal to the floor because you passed out, or if it was me and I just did it on purpose to see what would happen, don't you think the car should have, I believe the car should have used the radar, used the cameras, said, hey, we're coming off the highway now. We're coming up to an intersection. Time to slow down.
Yeah, you're going 73 miles an hour.
Why would it speed up?
You got a big structure ahead of you.
Right. By the way, there's a house up there, 100 yards. Well, is that a good time to speed up? I mean, I really think, in my opinion only, that Tesla and the software for the autopilot would be liable here. That's just my opinion.
I would think so too. I mean, and once again, why do you call something autopilot? Because autopilot means
it's a misleader.
I can chill out and maybe get a little nap in.
And there's people that do that.
Yeah,
they do it every day. And I'm telling you that I know you have a problem with the term autopilot.
Yeah,
because it misleads you.
Right.
I have a problem with autopilot because if Tesla wants to get out of all liable situations, they say you can put it on autopilot, but you have to keep aware of everything that's going on. So if you've got to sit there and keep aware of everything that's going on, are we speeding up, slowing down? There's a car up ahead. Is it slowing? Why don't you just shut it off and drive the car? It seems easier just to drive the car.
Yeah, and you would think that, I don't know about you, but if I'm tired and I get behind the wheel of a car, driving in a weird way keeps you awake.
It actually keeps you occupied. Yeah. Driving is work. If you do it right, driving, you got to put some effort into driving. You're constantly looking back and forth and front and rear and on the side. And is there a kid going to run out in front? I mean, there's all kinds of things to keep you alert. But I want to bring up one more point that I just thought of that you probably won't like, but the woman, unfortunately, this is tragic, that she died in bed because I believe it went through her bedroom, right?
Well, that car,
something like that.
I think she was in the front. I think she was in the front room because it crashed to the front of the house.
Okay,
and it didn't get very far, which is just amazing to me. Something going 73 miles an hour.
Right. See, my point I was going to bring up. Tesla, with all its faults with the autopilot and what's going to happen in court, we'll have to watch and see. But I just want to reiterate that point. Guy smashes a Tesla through a house at 70 miles an hour and walks away.
It's amazing.
The features today are just phenomenal.
Incredible when you think about safety. And that's, to the automobile industry's credit, that is even to your lesser expensive cars, the safety it's on those.
No, it's just
versus the expensive cars. You're really it's nice to see that.
The technology
not
is
that,
there
that
across
it's
the board, right?
But it is good to see that you got a lot of that same protection. I mean, I've heard of cars, smaller cars losing control on the Dallas North Toll Road, flipping and just demolishing the car, and the guy walks out of the car and no problems at all. And you hear about these Tesla crashes where, I think you might remember this, there was a fire truck that was blocking the road. Here comes this lady over the hill going 65 miles an hour. She slams right into that fire truck and walks away from it.
Did they forget to write software in to avoid emergency vehicles too?
I guess so. It just makes you think about the policemen who endanger their lives more than we even can imagine on a day-to-day basis because of stuff like that.
Yep, that's right.
Well, real quick, if you see the shift and the trend go towards more electric cars, is it a less cheaper option from a build standpoint than a regular car? Do you think?
No.
No, so it's more. Do you think that will change?
It depends on the demand.
Right.
Depends on the demand. If the demand is there and somebody can make money, they will meet that demand. That's the way it's always been and always will be. I don't think it's going to happen. That's just my opinion, but we'll wait and see. All these articles coming out, I don't know what to believe. I can voice my opinion on each individual article, but that doesn't mean anything. We'll see what happens.
This is Bob Brooks, and you've been listening to the Special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. If you got a question for me, please go to the website, www.prudentmoney.com, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.